Hey everybody, here today with our new content. We're going to start talking about counting atoms, which will eventually lead us to balancing equations. So, after today, well, not necessarily today, but within the next few days, our objective is really, I can count atoms in a molecule. So, to count an atom, or to count how many types of an atom are in a certain molecule, you're going to need to look at three things. Those three things are called the coefficient, the subscript, and the parentheses. So we'll go through each of these one by one and talk about how they affect how many atoms are in a molecule. Let's start with the coefficient. The coefficient is the big number. All right. So in this example, 5NaCl, so again, 5, the big number right here, NaCl, the coefficient is 5. The coefficient is the big number that's in front of the whole molecule. So, because it's a coefficient, it applies to both the Na and the Cl. That means in this molecule, we would have 5Na and 5Cl. All right, what about the subscript? What's a subscript? A subscript is a little number. It applies only to the element before it. So what does that mean? What does that look like? Look at H2O. The number 2 comes after the H. That is a subscript. Sub means below. So this 2 is only applying to this H right here. So in this molecule of H2O, the subscript 2 only applies to the H. So there are going to be 2 H atoms, but only 1 O atom, because this 2 doesn't care about the O behind it. It only applies to the element before it. All right. You'll come across a situation where you'll see both. When you encounter both a coefficient and a subscript, you're going to go ahead and multiply. So let's think of the example 5H2O. 5H2O. So my coefficient is 5. My subscript is 2. To get the amount of H atoms, I have to say, well, the 5 impacts this whole molecule. It impacts everything. So I have to do 5 multiplied by 2 to find the amount of H, so 10H, and 5 multiplied by 1 for the amount of O atoms. We don't actually write a 1 right here, but when there's no number, it means there's just 1. The last big component that you need to know about counting atoms is going to be when there's parentheses. So you've heard parentheses before. I'm sure you know what it is from math. Basically, they group a bunch of atoms together. When there's a subscript after a parentheses, it applies to everything inside of the parentheses. So look at this. NaOH3. We know that this 3 only wants to talk to the element right before it. However, because there are parentheses, the 3 is going to talk to both the H and the O. All right. So the 3 applies to both the O and the H. It does not apply to the Na because the Na is not inside of the parentheses. So just a couple tips and tricks to go through to help make this easier for you when you're doing it. Whenever you have a coefficient, sorry, went too fast there. Whenever you have a coefficient, you should put a box around the molecule. So this box is going to help you remember to multiply the entire molecule by the coefficient. All right, so if we put a box around H2O, that's going to help you remember that that 5 needs to go to everything. And the second part of this trick is you can draw arrows from the 5 going to the H and going to the O, so you remember to multiply both. You might be thinking, why are we doing this? Why are we doing math? Why are we counting atoms? Well, we have to be able to do this in order to balance equations, which is going to be our next big thing in our chemistry area. So take a moment and try to answer these. I'll have the questions pop up on Edpuzzle for you. But if you have any questions, let me know. I will post a separate video of me solving a few example questions for anybody who's still confused.